Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We are often very forgetful. We always forget what is important and also forget the history, the life, and the tragedies. As a matter of fact, every incident has some lessons for us. Nevertheless, I've seen that the people have very short memory and the leaders have shorter memories. As a matter of fact, it's convenient for them to have a short memory. And the lessons of any crisis, if forgotten, can be disastrous. We forgot the damage caused by the wars, and the wars never came to an end. The Second World War was supposed to be a war to end all wars. But did it end? Agreed that till today the war of that magnitude has not been fought. When the pandemics came, we thought that we are going to end them with all the research. Did we end them? But the worst is those things which are in our control, the economy, the financial crisis, which we can control, and which we still can do not. And when they happen, we are shocked, we are benumbed, we are devastated. The moment it's over, we talk about it and then forget it. And now the experts are warning in very clear, ringing tones. And that warning is not to the people, but to the leaders. They're warning them, do not forget the lessons of 2008 crisis. Heed them, because if you don't listen to those lessons, take benefit of the lessons taught, you are going to suffer much more. And when I say you, I mean the people. The leaders may not suffer, but the people would be suffering. And an economic disaster coming at the top of pandemic is something which is definitely a no-no from the human point of view. The global leaders have to learn the lessons of the financial crisis of 2008 when they look to repair the damage caused by coronavirus pandemic. And especially so since coronavirus pandemic has been instrumental in making millions unemployed. Production stopped, infrastructure curtailed, all supply chains disrupted. The estimates are shocking. 256 million people are likely to die from hunger, provided no action is taken. Millions of people have become unemployed. 35 million people became unemployed only in a week in India. The situation in USA is still worse. So it is incumbent on the leaders to remember those lessons, implement the lessons learned so that the world which is reeling under the impact of pandemic is able to face the financial disaster with equanimity. Now, what we've got to do is to avoid entrenching disasters, social, health, and environmental inequalities, as well as climate breakdown for the first time. The positive side of the coronavirus was that the rivers became pure. For the first time in India, for example, the Ganges, which is the most sacred and at the same time the dirtiest possible river, became clean and the water was drinkable, potable. Can you believe it? Dolphins were seen not only near the delta where the river meets the sea, but they were seen even upstream, even in metropolitan cities, 2,300 kilometers away from the delta, near Delhi, in Meerut. The skies were clean. People could see the Himalayan peaks and the shimmering in the sunlight, the snowy capped peaks, the blue skies. The birds came back, and the animal kingdom thought that the predators, like human beings, are gone. But is that going to remain? Are we going to be living in the Garden of Eden? No, I don't think so. But there can be certain balance provided the leaders implement the lessons learned from 2008 crisis. The 2008 global crisis and the recession marked the last time the world experienced a convulsion. And that was comparable to this coronavirus crisis. Starkly different in nature, but the impact was identical. Governments responded at first with economic rescue and stimulus packages worth trillions of dollars to the in taxpayers' cash. Who got the money? Not the taxpayer. The industry, the banks, who are playing ducks and drakes with the money. They never were careful. Their no responsibility was ever fixed. And the same thing happened today. And in many cases, the stimulus package in 2008 was followed by austerity programs to cut back public spending. And who suffered when the public spending was cut? The voters. So they were fleeced on both sides. They paid the stimulus package and the services which they were entitled to were cut. The infrastructure suffered, the medical services suffered, the education services suffered, and there was nary a hint of sympathy for the people. But after 2008, we have seen far greater levels of inequality, and that has never been that high since Second World War ended. That was a time when there was a lot of inequality. We saw a starker contrast between extremely rich and the rest of the people. And this difference was in health, job security, education, and other measures where the poor people suffering worst and the middle class squeezed while the income of the top 1% soared. As I was telling yesterday before, that Jeff Bezos of Amazon added $34 million in a week to his wealth thanks to coronavirus. So the greenhouse gas emissions have also risen despite warnings from scientists and the Paris Agreement of 2015. The rise came despite efforts to green the post financial crisis recovery. The low carbon and environmental measures accounting for more than 16% of the stimulus and all went waste. Would the stimulus that went waste in 2008 be repeated this time when the stimuluses are being given worth trillions of dollars? And there's nary a hope of their being utilized for the good of the people. So to avoid a similar outcome this time, the leaders must ensure their response to coronavirus crisis looks to be good to the society rather than just a few sectors or a few people. Sir Michael Moore, who is a real humanitarian economist and who doesn't have any extra grind, says that the result is going to be twofold. The first is the life expectancy is going to fall, which may not be a bad idea, personally, I can tell you. But the health services are definitely going to suffer. And the scale of what is happening in the economy now is far greater than what happened in 2008. So, what we need to bring climate agenda and health agenda together. We need to ensure that the climate agenda is not given extraordinary importance at the cost of health agenda. Both agendas have to be taken up simultaneously in connection and in conjunction with each other. Otherwise, if you are not careful, inequalities would rise and people would be justified in saying that austerity is not an experiment we want to repeat. No, we don't need it. The world doesn't need austerity, it needs stimulus and protection. Then we need a green recovery. That means we should direct any economic stimulus to reduce GHG, greenhouse gases, as well as generating jobs and repairing the economy. Now, if you remember, the economic stimulus in 2008 did produce some environmental improvements, such as investments in renewable energy. But was that sufficient? The total energy cost has not decreased. GHG, the greenhouse gas emissions have not decreased. And the solar energy is still much more expensive than it ought to be. So we need a sharper fall in the carbon prices under trading scheme, which is being offset by China. The construction boom in China is taking away all the benefits of all the stimulus. And imagine it, stimulus is applied in every country and the benefits go only to China. Isn't that something shocking? So this time can be different. But it would be different if there is a consistent effort by the leaders to be different. And if we review the cost of the climate change, we would find that now technology is different. We have seen the key cost of key technologies, such as renewable energies, come down appreciably. It's one thing that they have not been transmitted to the consumer. We have altogether superior electrical vehicles, but we know more about air pollution. The cost of treating respiratory diseases alone, because they are the prime result of pollution, has increased tremendously, and it is estimated that in case health and environmental sector were dovetailed, it would affect a great deal, not only in decreasing the cost, but also in keeping the planet clean. Yet talking about the environmental measures in the midst of economic crisis may not be popular. I know it. People are saying, no, we need economy. But economy by itself has no meaning. So you can be assured that the populism doesn't take hold of the leader. The biggest problem of the leaders is that they are swayed by populism, what the majority think, not by what the intelligentsia thinks. And populist is, we need more jobs. At what cost? You need jobs so that not only you, but majority of the people and the coming generations do not suffer. We talk of the Gillette Jaunt protest. Now that's very important. The protest that we have seen in France, the Jaunt protest, was sparked by a rise in the fuel taxes that had a particular impact on the poor people. So even the worms are turning. Let's not forget it. And populism, if it's not controlled, can be a disaster. But then don't forget, the roots of the protest were much deeper than just a few attacks. They were, as a matter of fact, extending as back as to 2008 crisis. And green measures can be presented as contrary to the people's interest. So you have got to ensure that environmental activities are seen as something conducive to economy. We have never thought of economy. We have been only considering them in isolation. There is a divergence among the policymakers. The policymakers see a choice between either jobs or pollution. And that's wrong. It can be jobs and pollution control. So it's important that we put policies in place that help create jobs and stimulate a clean energy transition. I remember once listening to Nobel Prize winner economist Joseph Spitz and others, and they said that putting public money into green projects would not be sufficient until and unless the short term and the long term benefits offset the cost of conventional high carbon projects. So, what's to be done? In a nutshell, retrofitting buildings. They have all to be retrofitted, whatever the cost may be. Working on cities to make them more friendly to cyclists and pedestrians. Change completely the architecture system of the cities. Each community should have its own. They shouldn't have to drive down 20 kilometers to go to a mall. The old Indian system of the street and stores, what they call the kirana stores, were ideal. And if they can be community markets, that'd be great. So all buildings have to be retrofitted. Cities have to be made pedestrian friendly. I won't even say cycle friendly. Make them pedestrian friendly. Digging trenches for broadband connections. That's important. Putting in networks for charging electrical vehicles. You don't want to drive 40 kilometers to recharge your car. And planting trees are examples of shovel ready projects that can create jobs in short time and reduce pollution permanently. These are the things that had to be done. Complete architectural overhaul, city redesigning, buildings redesigning, and labor intensive industry. Now, again, I'm coming back to that. Capitalism has to embrace labor intensive industry so that unemployment can be decreased. The policymakers have time still to design policy that both accelerates economic recovery and reduces inequality. That's most important. Once in a generation government spending could be used to reduce inequality and set up industries for the coming decade. And again, the emphasis should be on reducing inequalities, retrofitting, adoption of the new technologies, and the good to the greatest number of people. That way lies salvation. But are our politicians listening? I hope so. Let's see. Thank you.